This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, a podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Rich Brooks from Flyte New Media. Thank you so much for joining me.
Shannon, absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So could you please start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Anything that you think would be relevant for the audience that they'd like to know, and, how you got to this point in your professional career.
Sure. I started my what I now call a digital agency back in 1997. So we're about 27 plus years into this journey. So that's I think 1,600,000 in internet years or something like that.
Mhm.
We're up here in Portland, Maine. If I took a look out my right window, I would actually see Atlantic Ocean and Casco Bay. So it's a very nice place to be this time of year, really any time of year. And I have a full team here. We do website design, branding, paid search, paid social, SEO, and content marketing for a wide variety of different clients. Beyond running in my agency, I also have another brand called the Agents of Change, which is a weekly podcast and an annual conference. The conference we just turned 10 years old this year, and that's an in-person conference we have up here in Portland, Maine. And then the podcast is every week, and we are up to about episode 560 something at this point. So it's been over
Congratulations.
10 years of podcasting goodness, interviewing a lot of very smart people on digital marketing. And that is the gist of my professional career, as you would say.
That is really cool. I'm very happy that you have your own podcast. It's really exciting to talk to another podcast guest. I might ask you about that because
Sure.
I don't get to talk to a lot of people that have them already. Um, but what I want to start with is, well, what inspired you to create Flyte New Media, or I don't know if it was called that when you started it. And then how do you think maybe its focus has changed from when you started it to now?
Yeah, well, things have obviously changed in 27 years, especially when it comes to the internet and digital marketing. It actually was not called Flight New Media when I first started. I called it B1 Communications for really no good reason. Um, it was just it was just a name I put together when I was living down in Boston, and when I moved up here to Maine a few years after that, I connected with some local graphic designers just to kind of tell you how long it's been when I first came up here to find local graphic designers who I could partner with because I had no real good design skills. I opened up the Yellow Pages, which is an old fashioned way that we used to find businesses back in the 90s, and literally just went down to the graphic design section, called up every graphic designer in Portland, Maine, and told them, like, hey, if you are getting requests to do websites and you don't know how to do them, I can help you. You can design them, I can build them. And that could be the beginning of a great relationship. And a couple of those people took me up on it. And that really helped kind of launch my business when I moved to Maine, and started bringing in new clients. And through that, one of the companies said, would you mind actually if we designed it building our website? And I said, well, I'll do it as a barter. If you help me with the design for my website so I can build it out. And they said, yes, but your name is terrible. So we're going to give you a new name, and they actually offered me a few different ones. I went with Flyte New Media, which had no real intrinsic meaning to me at the time, but I liked it, and there was a paper plane logo and I had no logo design skills, and we went with that. Although that's been improved a few times since. And so it was really just me and building out websites. Sometimes I designed them myself. Sometimes I partnered with somebody with more talent than me. But as time went on, I got busier, and ultimately I had to hire some people, which was a scary thing. But started to figure out the different roles of the company, and I moved from design to development. I moved from development into marketing, and these days I really don't do almost any client facing work. There are people on my team who are better than me at every single position. Uh, Better branders, better designers, better developers, better marketers, at least, in terms of very specific tasks that they can do, like SEO or paid search. And so my job has really been to lift them up, to support them on their own professional journeys, and also to do business development for Flight. So that's kind of where I find my joy these days.
Oh, well, it's really lovely to be able to trust your team. I think that everyone strives to have that point where they can kind of, let go a little bit. Um, what was the process for building your team? I know you said the original yellow pages creatives, but I'm sure that it evolved when you got more, when the technology involved. But yeah, what was your vetting process maybe? How did you pick, like, what kind of people do you like to have on your team?
Yeah, early on, the vetting process was living people who would respond to my ads in the newspaper. Um, I really had no business background, no business acumen. And I think it's just because I wouldn't say I'm a hyper competitive person, but I do hate to lose. And so it was just like that drive that kind of kept things alive even in the lean years. One of my first hires was for a designer, and I just started to get feedback as the tools got better and so people were putting more stock into the design of websites. It became evident that I was a terrible designer. Like my skills really kind of plateaued. And so bringing in somebody with design skills was one of the first big things. So that was one of the roles. And at the beginning, we weren't really doing any marketing. It took me years to even start offering anything like search engine optimization because although it existed, it wasn't really a focus of mine. But then
Mhm.
as time went on, I started thinking about like, well, how do I help these businesses succeed beyond just giving them a website? And that's when we started to get into some of the SEO piece, which I found interesting. So I was doing the SEO and some development. As time went on and we got busier, it literally was just replicating people who were on my team. So another designer, more developers. And I was basically responsible for all the marketing stuff. But then as time went on and I started seeing what other companies were doing, I realized that I really needed dedicated people for marketing. And as the marketing got more complex and more competitive, I started to think like, well, we need somebody who's going to specifically think about SEO or specifically think about paid search because it just got more and more specific and more competitive. And so a lot of that was just kind of like finding where I wanted to go and filling those roles. And at a certain point, it became clear that I have a million ideas every day, but I'm really bad at getting them done. And so what I needed was somebody to kind of help balance that.
Mhm.
And that was something that's really only happened in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, where first I brought in a project manager. We went through a few. We have a really good one in place. And then she came to me and said, I need more responsibility in the company. And so I said, wow, I just finished reading this book all about, it was called Rocket Fuel. It was all about how every good business needs a visionary, the person who can kind of like see the destination they want to go to, and then an integrator, the person who actually gets that stuff done.
Mhm.
And I don't love the term visionary. It sounds very highfalutin to me, but that's kind of what I was. Like, I love being the center of attention. I always have big ideas. I love kind of brainstorming with people, but I don't like doing the actual work. And this woman who was already on my team, great with systems, great with organization. You like knew when to listen to me and when to ignore me, knew when my ideas were good or terrible, and basically would put the resources behind them. And even more recently, like I came back from an AI conference last year with all these ideas of how we were going to use AI in our agency. And after a year, really made very little progress on that. When I came back from the conference the second time, what I realized is that I needed her to implement my vision. So I knew that we needed to figure this out. So we're now in the process right now of creating that together. So I think like that's a key thing is understanding what you're good at and where your skills and passions lie and then creating a team around you that is good at all the things that you're not so good at. Because what you don't want to do is become a bottleneck to your own business.
I really like that vision because I think that a lot of agencies, I had a conversation about this recently about how a lot of agencies like to model their structure after corporate structure. And it's not something that really works for them. Because sometimes there's not a need for a certain position, or sometimes, structuring it this way is not fruitful for an agency environment, or vice versa. I like that you're filling it based off of one, not only need, but also character, like what you feel makes sense for you running a business, which is very different than maybe someone else might do it. But I like that mentality.
I think also, like, when you first start, unless you were, I mean, I never went to business school. If you did, maybe you have this kind of background, but for me, it was, everything was flying by the seat of my pants. And even today, 27 years in, we're learning things that maybe should have been implemented earlier on in the company, but sometimes you don't know until it really becomes a pain point and then you have to address it. There are certainly lessons that if I could travel back in time to 1997, I'd say prioritize this over this other thing over here. But who wouldn't want to do that? But it is something where it's important to be paying attention to where your pain points are and then recognizing them. And chances are there's somebody out there who can do that job better than you can. And figuring out what you really bring to the table that's unique is critical for any business owner or business leader who really wants to grow what they're doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that that's what everyone has to find, especially, you know, hone down their identity and what they want to be viewed as an agency or a business. And I think that's definitely, marketing helps with that. So that's really great. You mentioned AI earlier and that you're starting to implement some things. Could you talk about that, or is it secret? It's okay if it's secret.
Well, I can talk about how I'm using it because we're still kind of working it through the company, and
Mhm.
because of my integrator, we're going slower than I would want to go. But I think that's like one of the things that you have to give up is complete control when you start developing out a team.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I use AI. I never use it for writing. Like I do a lot of writing. I still think many humans can write better than AI, myself included, even though it's been trained up on like these amazing writers of all time. But there are things that I use it for. Like I'll use it if I'm writing a blog post, I'll use it for research. I'll use it for creating a framework for the blog post because humans are terrible at seeing things that they don't see, where AI is really good at understanding that. So creating a framework will often remind me of one or two things that I wouldn't have considered that I should add into this blog post if I really wanted to be world class. And they'll often use it on the back end for optimization for SEO or for the EEAT standards at Google, or just for typical grammar and flow and things like that to provide feedback. I also will use it in reviewing landing pages or really any page on a website where I feed that content to ChatGPT. I primed it with certain things that I would expect to see on a quality landing page or service page, and then provide feedback and recommendations on how to improve that page. And it's not that I can't do that work or my team can't do that work without AI, but we're looking for ways in which we can speed up certain processes that we do all the time. And so that would be a couple of examples where we're starting to implement AI into our workflow.
I think that that's really lovely to be able to do it in that way because, well, what I understand using AI to speed up processes, I think that for this moment in time where it stands, that makes the most sense. I don't think it writes better than a person. I would agree with you, especially I a well attuned writer. I think that it can help when, checking for certain things in your writing or whatever it may be, or maybe, summaries or different things like that. I think that's very helpful. But it's nice to be able to I didn't think about it for like feedback for different projects like landing pages because it must have a bunch of consumer data to be able to work with, which is really cool because I think that, running it by many people, especially within the company, I think sometimes people have a difficult time having the brain of a consumer for that company, especially or even talking to the person in that company. It's really difficult for them because they've created their baby and they don't want it's very difficult for them to critique sometimes something that they've worked hard on or are very excited about. So I like
Yeah.
using AI for those types of things because it's more objective than a human might be in looking at that kind of research.
Yeah, and I also think you're right. It is more objective, so you're not going to feel bad, or it's not going to feel bad about giving you critical feedback. You can also train it up to be very specific to an industry. So if you know who your buyer persona is, you can feed that information in. And yes, it knows enough about consumer behavior, but you can also fine tune that AI so that it's a conversion rate expert, and maybe feed it some documentation. Like if you're an expert, or if you know an expert and you follow them and you read their blog post and you can summarize that and feed that into a tool like ChatGPT, that can also provide really good feedback as well. And again, it might be that you would have gotten 8 out of 10 of those points anyways, but those other two things could have been critical. So that's where I think that having AI as another input, another voice in the room can be very beneficial. And also just for brainstorming or ideation, like very often, like when I'm not sure where to start on a project or a campaign, just having a back and forth conversation with AI can kind of help clarify some of my thinking and where I want to prioritize some of my efforts.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's one of those things where at the moment it's like an assistive tool, as
Yeah.
anything else can be. Like, I don't know. Example escaping me, but regardless, I think it's something that's really helpful for someone who's already really good at their job. And I think it can just make you that much better at certain things. And I really like that it's able to be used for that. I think that a lot of people may be using it for things further than that. And I don't know if it's ready for those things, but that's very okay. I mean, if it's working for them, that's good. Um, so speaking of, I guess I don't know if I'd consider it a trend because I think it's going to continue to evolve. Um, but I was wondering on the lines of that, what kind of trends or changes in digital marketing are you kind of excited about? Because
Well,
it
I
seems like you're
obviously
the ideas guy, so you must be excited about a lot of things.
excited and concerned always. I think AI is probably going to be the biggest story for many years to come, and
Mhm.
it is disrupting a lot of what we already do. And one of our big areas of expertise is in SEO, for example, and yet everything has been turned on its head because of AI. So you've got people who are creating loads more content than they ever did before because they're using AI. Now, personally, I don't think that that's having a big impact on SEO because I think already Google has kind of figured out um, when something's written by AI, it's not perfect. And they claim that they don't de emphasize AI generated content, but at the same time, they also talk about the fact that they're looking for people or they're looking for articles or blog posts that contain personal experiences. And so that's something that AI cannot create. It does not have personal experiences. It can make up a story, but it won't be the same thing. So this is why experts are really important in creating this content, whether you're the expert or you're interviewing experts. So to bring in that personal experience piece is really critical, something that AI can't do as well. And now I've lost the thread of the original. Oh, trends and stuff like that. So one of the things that I'm seeing is like Meta and Google, their ad platforms are relying more and more on AI and pushing us to use their AI tools more and less our own human thinking. Now, whether that's good or bad is immaterial. It just happens to be the way things are going. So is and my concern is, or one of the things I'm aware of is they may just take away all human intervention at some point, which then would basically render any agency or even any Google Ads expert useless because why would you hire somebody to do this work for you when basically the platform's not going to let them do anything different anyways? And so as we start to see trends like this, like Meta forcing us to use more of their AI tools, um, we start to have to think about where do we want to shift? Because if we keep on doing what we're doing, we're basically going to become immaterial in not too long. So right now we have to think about where are there still places for human intervention? And is it on the landing pages? Is it on the creatives? If AI is going to be the best at targeting and bidding going forward, then let's not spend time on those aspects. So then how do you get your team or yourself to shift to find the places where human creativity and human intuition are still going to make a difference? Where your experience and your expertise are going to make a difference. And so AI, whether we like it or not, is going to free us up for some of those mundane traits and skills and tasks. And hopefully let us focus more on the places where we can really make a difference on things like that human connection, telling real life personal experiences, and having that emotional intelligence to connect with another human being.
I 100% agree with that, and I hope that that's what we go towards. I think that how I think about it a lot of times is how we kind of crave human connection in situations where we do not have as much access to it, like, for example, COVID. Um, that was a time where Obviously, a lot of us were not able to see our loved ones or connect with even strangers in person. And I think that afterwards, there was this big boom of excitement for events and planning all these things for people to be able to interact with each other, and I think it's still going. And I hope that with AI, when that advances further, that this is a trend that we go towards again is, personalization and, human experience. I hope that that's what ends up happening is, I think that agencies will still be able to do their job, but I hope that we can um, I just hope that people will crave these experiences more because of kind of as a response to, automation for things.
I hope so, but the bottom line as business owners, as marketers, we have to keep our focus on what people are looking for. So if they're looking for in-person events or person-to-person connections, then that's what we need to provide. But if people are looking to self-serve, then you have to recognize that you've got to create the tools that will allow them to self-serve. And that may not make you feel happy or even contented, but the bottom line is if people want to be able to order their own pizzas or have it delivered or do pick up in a store, or whatever it is that they're looking to do, your job is to help make that as pleasant an experience as possible. So it's kind of about trying to find that balance between, yes, I'd love it if you came over and we met face to face, but if you can't do that, let's find a way that we can make the connection as easy as possible for you so that you can accomplish your goal and keep on moving forward.
Yeah, it's all about being adaptable to I mean, you are serving people, so you have to adapt to their needs and wants, and, I think that is what makes a great agency is being able to pivot, when there are changing trends in what people want, and that's not only in a general sense, but also specifically for campaigns. I mean, marketing is not something that's always 100% a shoe in reliable when you create a objectively good campaign that should work. Sometimes it doesn't. And you have to
Right.
pivot in order to please the client no matter what. And um I think that we're already kind of trained to be able to adapt to those kind of scenarios. So I'm hoping that it won't be too big of a problem when AI gets much larger than it is right now. Well, I had touched on COVID a little bit. I was actually curious because you've been around for so long. Sometimes I don't get to really discuss this. I was wondering how you navigated that.
Mhm.
What changed? What did you feel like you had to do differently, if anything?
Well, we definitely had, like every other business, we had to change everything because, we were in office 5 days a week and then suddenly we couldn't even come into the office. So there were some immediate changes that we had to make and adapt like everybody else. And like everybody else, we were fully panicked at the beginning of COVID, fully panicked at the beginning of shutdowns, wondering if there would, what the world economy would look like and everything like that. But we also recognized that we were in an interesting position where if this was going to go, and I don't think any of us realized how long it was going to go on, but that this could radically change the way that people interact with businesses. They weren't even able to go out and visit businesses anymore. And we were in a great position. I mean, it sounds an awful thing to say, but it's true because people all of a sudden realize my website needs help. My marketing needs help. My online presence needs help. And so with our current client base, we immediately reached out to them and started offering them free consults with us for any aspect of their business so that they could um, pivot. For I know it's an overused word, but that was the word of the day. So that they could continue to succeed, even if they didn't have an office space anymore, even if things were up in the air and changed. And that was a big part of it is really just trying to be a leader in the space. And we started creating more content and more videos. And I was taking more free meetings, free consult meetings with clients just to kind of talk about it. And I think that that really kind of helped us in the marketplace because we were very visible at the time. And we took a leadership role. And I talked a lot about how owners and leaders should treat their people during this time because I was hearing some real stories I would consider really not treating human beings like human beings, which I guess is always a thing. And I felt like we really needed to be a lot more understanding of where people were. on all sides of the spectrum when it came to COVID and the lockdowns and all the changes that were going on. And at the time, I was dealing with my own things. I was dealing with two daughters who were in high school, and suddenly they're one of
Uh,
them is everything is from home, and the other one goes off to college, and only the freshman class was on campus at first semester. I mean, it was just you lived through it, so you know how difficult it was going to be. So, and perhaps because my dad talks a lot around resilience, he's a clinical psychologist. Um, that a lot of those ideas and lessons were things that I felt I could also share with the world. And so it actually worked out well for us. We educated our clients on what they needed to do, and we offered a lot of free and discounted work for them. And it ended up actually giving us a lot more work to do. And some of our most successful years were during those really tough years of COVID because we were doing the work that needed to be done right then. And thankfully, even after COVID, things really didn't slow down all that much. We kind of figured out some things about the way to run a business. And we actually got to be a stronger team, even though we were all working remote for a couple, 3 years during that period. And we hired people during COVID who I had never hired people virtually. And we did that. And I still remember the day when, towards the end of COVID, when we said, let's go and do a Flyte New Media being my company, flight event. And there's a schooner not too far from here. We're going on the schooner for the day. And we all met at this outdoor bar. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how tall these people are who I've hired. Like, I've never seen them outside of this little screen. And so that was kind of interesting. And then kind of figuring out how do we start coming back to the office and how much do we push people to come back to the office? Because those of us who were there before COVID know the power of in person collaboration. But a lot of the people who came to us during or after COVID, like that, working in an office wasn't really their experience. And so, how do you merge these different personalities and these different perspectives on whether work from home, in office work, or some sort of hybrid is best for them and best for the company has definitely been something that we're still working.
Well, I'm happy that you kind of touched on all of the different things that would affect because I think that usually someone will like hone in on one. But I think that it really does affect every part of a company almost because it's not only employee dynamics, but it's also, the type of person that you're working for, what they're asking for. Um, and it's really nice. One, I'm very happy that you were able to have success during that time. I think that some agencies maybe have not had that experience. So it's really lovely that that was able to be your experience and you were able to help people that needed it at that time because I think that businesses really needed a lot of help during that time, especially since they weren't able to be visited in person. So a lot of people had to change the way that they were doing things and how they were selling and had no idea how to go about doing it. So I think that it's really
Yeah.
amazing and helpful that you were able to be there for that.
I think that any agency or really any company, any B2B company, I wouldn't say has a responsibility to the success of their clients, but there's a lot more ways that we can contribute to the success of our clients rather than the one specific thing we sell them. And
Mhm.
so I think that that was helpful as well in building those relationships, those deeper relationships with some of our clients, even if they wanted to get on a Zoom call and not talk about marketing per se. And they wanted to talk about something else as part of their strategy or ask me questions about how I was dealing with some remote work thing like that. Those just deepen relationships. And especially in a service industry like agency life, relationships are everything. And we've definitely had situations over 27 years where we've done a great job on building a website or a branding project, what have you. And the client doesn't want to ever work with us again because it was an unpleasant experience for them
Mhm.
for whatever reason. And likewise, we've also done work that I wouldn't say is our best work, but we had have a great relationship with that client. And if we do mess up, that they're more than willing to give us another chance. And I think that those are the two things. You obviously want to deliver positive ROI and positive results for another business you're working with, but also you want them to like working with you, to look forward to when you have a Zoom call or get together in person because they trust you and they trust that you have their best interest in mind. And when you can put those two things together, then you become an unstoppable company.
Yeah, no, I really resonate with that. Um I think that the client experience is almost equally as important as the work that you deliver, if not more
I would
important.
agree. As
Yeah.
crazy as that sounds,
No.
I think that that's absolutely true.
I don't think it's crazy at all. I just think that I personally value like personability over anything. Even if I'm on the phone with my health insurance company, if
Yeah,
if they're super nice, but I'm on hold for 40 minutes, I won't be really that mad.
yeah.
As long as I'm not, on the phone with a grump. But I really do think people have more patience for kindness. People are more willing to listen to, especially that you guys emphasize educating clients, which I think is a really interesting part of your business model. But I think that when you meet people with kindness, generosity, understanding, they're much more likely to listen to your ideas and consider them. And I think that a lot of people are a little touchy with their businesses and how they want to advertise them and different things like that. And I think that based on experience with the agency they're working with, it could also be a them problem. We don't know, but based on the experience of the agency that they're working with, they might be more understanding of ideas that they weren't open to initially because of the interactions that they have.
Yeah, if they trust in you and they feel that you have their best interests in mind and you bring some expertise to the table, I definitely think that they're more open to try things that you might recommend.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think that's really important for any service, because people are trusting you with something that they could do themselves, maybe not well, but and that they want you to do good work because it's something that they care about, and they want to know that you care about it as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that this is a perfect point to end on because we're actually out of time, but I love the advice that was given, so I'm really happy that, this is where we got. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Shannon. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching or listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to be educated every episode just like I get to be. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.